BXB. It's in the game!
Phew! That was lucky. I thought when I captured this footage of the intro to the Mafia 3 here that I'd have to do some fancy pants ripping of the awesome licensed music to remove it from this. But I don't, because it wasn't captured in the first place. This is my review, Ben Hall, of Mafia 3. Now, Mafia 3 is a sequel, strangely enough, to 1 and 2, though it's not directly connected, because in Mafia 3, your protagonist, the main character, is this strapping, terrifying, powerful, Nam vet, Lincoln Clay. Now, it's a story of revenge, and you might see in a couple of these images from early in the game here, well, it's kind of obvious why some revenge is happening. And, yeah, he got shot in the head and not killed, and now he's out for blood. And that's basically the crux of the story of Mafia 3. It's a typical crime story wrapped in this open world setting. And as it's an open world setting, you can expect plenty of third-person action, driving, maps, and missions. Because, you know, it's an open world. And this is not the first open world game I've reviewed. This won't be the last open world game I've reviewed. But it's actually the first I reviewed in quite a while. And you know what? I was quite glad to come back to the genre. It had been a while, and it was nice to get back into it. This, I guess you could say, is closest to a GTA game. Obviously, the crux of it, you know, the name Mafia kind of gives it away. The crux of it is this concept of crime families and revenge and things like that. But this is GTA for adults. Now, obviously, GTA is a very mature game. It's a very harsh game, but it's obviously satirical and funny and appeals to the kids. Mafia 3 isn't really trying to appeal to the kids. Mafia 3 is telling an incredibly mature story to do with prejudice, bigotry, race, racial inequality, sexual inequality, you name it. This game is set in the late 60s, and your protagonist, your main character, he's a black guy, and that gets thrown in your face violently, horrifically, at every turn. Even good guys will refer to you using the N-word and various other words. You will get spat at in the street. The police will attack you and be horrible towards you and always assume your guilt before your innocence. And obviously this is a reflection of the time, but I also think, without getting too political, it's maybe a reflection of what we're seeing a little bit today, especially in the United States. Now, I'm not going to get into that, but I think, like I said, this is a very mature story and a very mature game, and you should really come and approach it from that direction. But it's an open world game as well. As you can see, I'm driving around between locations, and I'm interacting in this open world in various ways that usually involve blowing things up or shooting them in the face. I won't deny it. And that's kind of, I guess that's the biggest problem with Mafia 3. That while we have this incredibly well-crafted, mature storyline, which I will get to shortly, the gameplay itself quite quickly gets into a loop. Basically, you start recruiting these lieutenants, and for these lieutenants, you have various rackets, and basically you need to go and claim back the city from the bad mob to be taken over by your mob, and in doing so you do very similar tasks that, while they might have different names, like they could be dealing with extortion or racketeering or moonshine business or running guns or running drugs, you know, you're still basically going somewhere, killing someone and taking over an area and then giving it to one of your mob lieutenants. That's a cool mechanic, because you have these 3 different lieutenants, and you basically have to decide, because each of them has a different upgrade path that give you different perks and abilities. You decide who you want to give the new rackets to, and that will result in you getting more perks, but it will also piss off the lieutenants you don't give it to the point where potentially you could lose them, and you could end up becoming enemies of yours, and you actually have to deal with them, which is pretty cool. The dealing with people in this game, the killing, the shooting, the basic murdering, the stabbing, there's a lot of stabbing in this game. Lincoln Clay has a knife, and you use it in stealth combat and melee combat, and you do stab a lot of people. It is very, very violent and very, very grim. But the combat is really good. The gunplay, the cover mechanics, everything feels really polished. I know some people have been critical about the level of polish in this game. I actually haven't, after putting in 30 hours in this game, I haven't had really many glitches. Certainly nothing game breaking. The autosave system is very generous in this game, so even if you did have something come up, you would be able to quite easily go back to just previous and, you know, replay a section. But I haven't really had that problem. I haven't had any crashes to dashboard or anything like that. And like I said, the combat feels really good. I didn't feel the need to really experiment too much with different weapons, because just my main pistol and headshotting people felt incredibly accurate and satisfying. I'd often, you know, as a backup, I'd carry a shotgun or an automatic rifle or something like that and pull that out when needed. But I really just like headshotting people. It feels really, really, really satisfying, really good. I can't stress how much enjoyment I got from that in an incredibly dark way, I suppose. That's when I wasn't stabbing people, because that's also a lot of fun. And then the other main mechanic you'll be obviously doing in this game is the driving, and I would definitely recommend you can have like a easy driving mode or simulation driving mode. Put on simulation. It makes the cars squirrely, but in a fun way. When you put the power down, your back end slides out and you have to wrestle it back. You know, that just adds to the fun of the chases, the fun of evading the police and things like that. You know, it's actually quite enjoyable driving around the city here in Mafia 3 of New Bordeaux, which is obviously based on New Orleans. Now, the city is gorgeous. It's got some great lighting effects at time throughout the days and night cycles. There's lots of really nice weather effects. The whole game in general is gorgeous. So let's talk about the cutscenes, those story interactions that you get between Lincoln and the various other main protagonists, your lieutenants, and the main protagonists of the game. Now, the whole game is told in this framed narrative, told from a future point, recounting the events of what happened here, which is a really compelling thing to start with. Makes you really involved and really care about what's going on. But then the actual cutscenes are gorgeous, well acted, brilliantly voice acted, and the writing is impeccable. I genuinely cared about Lincoln. While he is a brutal, frightening, powerful man, he is also sympathetic. He is damaged. Everybody in this game is damaged. Even the most awful bad guys have got a side and an element to them that you look at and go, that's human, that's real. I understand your motivations. I totally get it. And it feels so true and accurate to the time period. I felt like I was learning things about American culture from this time period while I was playing this game. I felt like the characters were so real that they could have actually been real people. And having this framed narrative set from a future point, it's so convincing that you're actually playing this game, and these are all fictional. It's all fictional and everything is made up, but at the same time it's so well done and so well couched in that time period that Hangar 10, the developers, really, really nail this. I was very impressed with the story and the narrative and the characters of Mafia 3, and maybe the open world elements of the game kind of get in the way a little bit of getting you between the story missions, especially as the game starts to progress and get further in and stuff. You start to wish that you could just get to those cool story beats and get to those cool story missions sooner and easier, because yeah, it's an open world and therefore some of the experiences do feel padded out. But even that, you know, the open world I think is compelling. The gunplay is good, the driving is good, the side missions are fun, what you are doing is fun. There's maybe not enough variety in there. You know, it would have been nice to have a few more different things to do, but all in all, I had a really good time in New Bordeaux. It's a dark, depressing at times, heavy story, and you know, what goes on in the day-to-day and the moment-to-moment gameplay is dark and brutal. But if you're in the mood for something that's different in an open world that isn't maybe as silly as many of the ones we see, and there aren't that many open world games out there at this time of year, this year, which means there's maybe some time for something like that for you. So I definitely recommend picking up Mafia 3 and delving into this dark, oppressive world. So I give Mafia 3 a very, very strong 4 out of 5 stars.
BXB. It's in the game.